The views, opinions, and representations expressed on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network and its website are those of the hosts, guests, and participants, and are not necessarily those of or endorsed by the network, its affiliated stations and broadcasts, the management, other hosts, or advertisers of the network. The shows found on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network can, but do not necessarily, promote any particular lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or other personal practice. These shows are for entertainment purposes only, and are not intended to treat, diagnose, and or claim any cure of disease or condition, or give any medical or legal advice. You are listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, from our compound to you worldwide, with your host, Gary Anderson.
Hey, that is me, and at the compound, it is chilly out here tonight, I'll tell you that. More chilly than normal. I hope everybody has had a great work week, and I hope where you're at, you're not freezing your fanny off. But I want to say hi to everybody from coast to coast and worldwide that's listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. We also have changed our name a little bit up, and now it's called Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark. And you'll start seeing that on the web here in the next 2 weeks as that change takes effect. Tonight, we've got a great guest coming on right after this commercial. But I have to say, Tobias Wayland, we're going to be talking tonight about cryptids, monsters, Mothman, and Dogman, and all this interesting stuff. So stay tuned, please.
Please check out the Night Dreams Talk Radio website at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. Also, if you want to keep our show free of advertising, just hit the donate button. Give $1 or $2. Remember, all prior shows are always free to listen to. We at Night Dreams Talk Radio thank you for your support.
You're listening to my friend Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio, the best in paranormal radio.
You know how much money I had to pay John Cleese to do that? No, that's not true. He actually did it because he actually listens to the show. Hey, Tobias, are you there?
Hey, sure am, Gary. How are you?
I'm trying to stay warm. Normally, in my studio, like I was telling you, it is hot. Like in the summertime when I do the show in here, people don't realize I can't run the air conditioner because I am maxed out on amps and watts and all that stuff with all the equipment. And this thing will even climb up to over 100 degrees in the studio. And, normally when we don't go through this cold cycle, it's nice, comfortable around 70-some degrees. Right now, I was just looking at the temperature and it's like 56 degrees in here.
Yikes.
Now, maybe some of that shaking will I'll lose some weight.
Yeah, here's hoping.
So what is going on out there with monsters, cryptids, dogmen, all these creatures, reports and all that stuff?
Yeah, well, that is a big question. Most recently for me, and I don't know if the listeners out there have been keeping up on this, but for the past couple of years, one of the big investigations, we've been part of have been Mothman and flying humanoid sightings just all over around Lake Michigan. So within probably a 1 to 200 mile radius of this Great Lake for some reason. And most recently, the cases that have been crossing my desk about that have been coming from Indiana, of all places. So, we started getting some cases from Gary, and then people started getting a hold of us about some sightings out by the Prairie Creek Reservoir, which is closer to Muncie. And it's just bizarre, Gary, honestly, and it's difficult to know what to make of it. I mean, sort of what happens here, before I get into any of the details about the sighting, what will happen and what makes this so difficult to keep track of, I think, for a lot of people, and why I actually started a specific timeline is, say somebody has one relatively recent sighting, That goes viral on the internet. More people start seeing it, and they'll say, hey, I saw something similar to that, 10 years ago. And so they'll get a hold of us and be like, hey, I had this sighting 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whenever. And so we'll get what looks on the surface to be, a flap of sightings. But, the reality of it is it's not really a flap, because it's not happening in that short of a time span, really. It just appears that way because of when they're being reported. And that's kind of what we're seeing in these Lake Michigan Mothman sightings. The only real part of it that I would describe as a real traditional flap, in incident of real heavy sightings, all taking place, not just being reported, but taking place within, a relatively short amount of time, would be the Chicago sightings from, spring of 2017 through, really like the summer and fall of 2018. But, like I was saying, most recently, as far as these sightings are concerned, we've been getting more out of Indiana. Like, I had one, and what really kicked it off was we got one just recently. It would have been January of this year, and it was a fairly recent sighting. So this sighting was from December 26, 2018, so just the end of last year. And so this guy says that he and his wife they're traveling southbound on a county road about a mile south of the Prairie Creek Reservoir near Muncie, Indiana. So, there is a city right there, but frankly, this is a pretty rural area. I think he was out there to do some fishing in this reservoir. And other than Muncie, I don't know that there are any really, significant urban areas. And so, he's out there, he's driving with his wife, and he sees this winged being as they're driving along. He says it's flying just about treetop level, and that he got a good look at it. Now, this is an ex-military guy. He's an outdoorsman, hunter, trapper, farmer, lives in that area. He's generally familiar with different types of aircraft, with different types of, wildlife, things like that. And so, he sees this thing, and it startles him enough that his initial reaction is just to slam on the brakes. He stops the car, middle of the road, and starts looking at this thing, and he's yelling at his wife, like, hey, do you see that? And, she's so shaken, that she, just by him slamming on the brakes like that, that she doesn't even gather her wits in time to really see much of it. But he said he got a good look at it, and what he described was, he said it was humanoid in shape, with an obvious face. And that sounds a little vague, but what people have to realize is when just, your average person is trying to describe something that is completely alien to their experience, not everybody is a writer. It can be really difficult for them to find the words to, express what they're trying to tell you. So what he really meant by that was that it clearly had a face, and a humanoid one at that. He didn't have real specific details, but, I found that particularly startling, because in the cases I've had that I think could be potentially something like a misidentified bird, nobody really describes, it having a face. If you saw that it had, like a humanoid face, that's a pretty obvious indication that, it wouldn't be a misidentified bird or something. It's those kinds of details that make me think that it might have been something really, really strange. Usually misidentifications, are just a lot of vague details. People don't mention things like faces and whatnot. But the size of this thing too, he said that the body, in his estimation, was about 6 or 7 feet long. Described the wings as bat-like, so just picture that kind of like membranous wing, and that they were really, really wide. This creature, it's dark, it's dark colored, and he said that it was just gliding along at a steady speed. For the entirety of his sighting, he didn't see it flap its wings once, which, I've seen big birds fly, and they don't flap their wings as much as a sparrow or something small, but it's pretty unusual to see them cross your entire field of vision, without them even doing it once. So, just a lot of weird details. He actually said that he got enough of a look at it to note the leathery texture of its wings, even, which if you're able to make out that kind of detail too, my instinct would be to say, well, if you can tell that, you would know if it had feathers or not. So that kind of goes back to why I would suspect that it's not as simple as just a misidentification of some normal animal. But yeah, that was a weird one, and in publishing that, it got a lot of attention.
Well, I bet it would.
Suddenly, yeah, right. And so suddenly we're getting reports from people all over in Indiana talking about similar sightings. And some of them were actually from that area. Interestingly enough, there were a couple other sightings real similar to the one that gentleman described, but there was one in particular that really got my attention, and I talked to this witness at length. So there was a gentleman who had seen that report of the bat-like, flying humanoid Mothman thing at Prairie Creek Reservoir, and that inspired him actually to get a hold of us because he said that he has had a series of anomalous, like glowing orb sightings in that exact area. So his sightings were relatively historical, actually. They ran from, I want to say, 1981. Well, I mean, honestly, I guess they're not entirely historical because they started in 1981, and he said his most recent sighting was in about 2016. So he had been seeing these glowing orbs